Hello and welcome to All Backed Up. I'm your host Dylan, and I'm joined today by Kyaw and Jack. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hiya.
And we're going to be talking about, as usual, I always stumble over this part. I should clear it up a bit. We're going to be talking about games we've played.
Yeah, boy.
From our backlog, more specifically. Jack, I mean, you've finished the game that you were talking about last week. You finished Mad Max, right?
Yes, I did. Yes.
I saw your image, your photograph.
Yeah, that was
Spoiler-filled
the
image.
that was the sort of like, I guess, start of the end credits. That little.
You ruined the end. You ruined the end.
I'm sorry, man.
basically.
It's just a Mad Max word on the screen. Come on,
Who
man.
sends a photo of the end of a game to someone, Jack? Come on!
It's just
Use your ass,
it's
man!
the
I
name
don't know
of
what
the
that
game.
means.
Come on, man. Hey, I don't think I was being unreasonable by sending that photo.
I think it's outrageous. But, I mean, let's start with that. I don't know if there's much more to say. You were quite comprehensive last time, and I don't think you didn't have much more to go after that, right? There wasn't much until the finish.
So, like, the parts that I was on when I was talking about it last week, it was sort of building up. So I guess I had to do a couple of missions in the world before I could actually progress on with the story mode, which I think is like a sort of good aspect to the game. So it's not like it's all just one note linear. You can do the story and then you can move on. You actually have to go out of your way to do some other sort of side quests in order to actually progress on with the story, which I think sort of enables people to actually go out and explore a bit more. So I actually like that kind of aspect to the game. But yeah, I was at a point where I was sort of trying to make my way into Gastown to then compete in some of these death races. So the first thing that you do is you have to sort of settle a debt with someone else in order to have it so that you can actually compete, because I don't think you're allowed, or you need like someone else who is like, I think you need like a second driver in your car or second person in your car in order to be allowed to race and compete. So you have to go and settle a debt with someone else to then allow them to let someone else come and compete with you, if that makes sense. But yeah, so then you go in with this other person who's in the car with you, and you basically go up against the champion of Gastown, who isn't Scrotus. He's some guy called Stank Gum. Like, these names are just fucking bizarre, and I fucking love it.
Mate,
but there's this guy called
Stank Gum.
But there's this guy called Stank Gum, and he's driving a car called the Big Chief, which is one of the, I think, obviously in a post-apocalyptic world, you've got cars and everything, but there are only certain number of vehicles that have V8 engines. And so throughout the entire game, you're driving around in your little V6 engine. You can upgrade it, you can get turbos and all of this stuff on it. But your main aim is to try and get a V8 for your car. And the one way that you can get it is to win this race or one of the races towards the end. If you win, you get the you win the car, and then essentially you can fit that V8 onto the car that you drive. So that's the whole premise of that last bit. So you go in and you win against Stan Gum. So it's basically, I think you have like a 5-minute time limit, and it's just like a sort of, it's not like a circular track per se, but it's just like a looping track where you can go around, and then there's other enemies that are trying to stop you, but you essentially just have to try and stop the car before the 5-minute time limit. So you do that. I've done that, and then you win, and then sort of like a cage drops down on you and your teammate in the car, and it's like winner takes all. So you have to fight to the death between you and the guy that was in the car with you. In like in some really freaking like messed up cage match. And then right at the end, after you win that battle, Scrotus actually turns up, and he's the guy. Obviously, at the start of the game, you were on his truck and you shoved one of his, like, he's got like this stick, and he's got two chainsaws stuck like on either end. So he's got one on one end and one on the other end. And you essentially
Seems dangerous.
Well, I mean, at the start of the game, you force one of the chainsaws like to basically make a large slice into his skull, which is just fucking nuts. Like, that's like,
and he's fine.
Yeah, well, like he sort of, he gets like a bit of metal or something, and he just sort of just closes the wound around this bit of metal to stop it from. I don't know, man. I'm not a fucking like brain surgeon. I don't know how that shit works. Like, this is some fucking post-apocalyptic
I don't think a brain
world.
surgeon knows how that shit works either.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know. it's
A chainsaw to the head should be a finishing move.
Hey man, it's not rocket science.
It's some messed up shit. Okay, let's just gloss over the fucking biological impact of that shit. Like, we know that it wouldn't work, but whatever. Yeah, so like, he's got some weird fucking metal spike pointing out of his head, and he's also still got his chainsaws, but he comes and fights you, and obviously he's not going to let you get away with one of his vehicles.
That seems against the spirit of the games. Come on, Scrotus.
Man.
I expected better from you.
I mean, he is like Scrabble Scrotus the Immortal is what they called him, so, you know, he basically just, yeah.
But that now explains how he could take a chainsaw to
Yeah, that's consistent, yeah.
Come on, Jake, that was a key piece of information.
I forgot about that, man. I'm sorry.
Ridiculous.
But yeah, so like, you do this, and then you fight against him, and it's I guess like the combat in it is very sort of simple. Like, as I've mentioned before, it's very simplified. It's just basically left click on the mouse to punch, and then right click when you see the prompt to parry an enemy's attack, and it's all very much like that throughout the game. But you go through some fighting missions against Scrotus, and then he sort of runs away, and then you go, and I think like he goes and takes some, like, I'm trying to see if I can remember how the story works out, because it sort of gets a bit, I sort of found it a bit hard to follow towards the end because there's so much happening at once. But there's this concubus that they call Hope, and it's like some woman whoever wins whoever beats, or Stank Gum owns Concubine because he's like the champion of Gastown, and it's like whoever is the champion of Gastown has this woman who's there with them, and
Of course.
she's called Hope. And sort of once you win, Scrotus sort of, I guess, kidnaps Hope as well, and then drives off to the Underdune. So out in the desert somewhere, he drives off and basically kidnaps them. Scrotus has taken this woman's daughter to somewhere else, and you have to go and try and rescue her. So you go there and you rescue this daughter called Glory, which I guess, you know, is sort of cute that you've got Hope and Glory there. And then you rescue the daughter, you take it back to Hope, and then some other stuff happens. You sort of have like a flashback, or when you're at this dune place, the guy who's with you, Chumbucket, who's like the guy who works on your car and upgrades it for you and everything, he gets scared because there's these buzzards that come after him, and he drives off with the car and sort of like half betrays you, I guess, in a way. So like, then you have to, once you're out of there and once you're back to Gastown, you have to go and then find Chumbucket, who's driven off with your car. And I guess like I don't know if it's like I don't know if there's a way of avoiding it, but I got caught up in, so I was talking about storms and stuff the last time, and I sort of got caught up in this, I guess, even worse storm. It was called like the Black Storm, and it was literally like, it felt like it just went on forever, and it was fucking like thunder, lightning, just everything, and you literally couldn't drive through it. It was, I guess it was like one of the weirdest experiences I've had in terms of like driving around in a game. Like, you don't necessarily expect to have a giant cloud of dust and thunder and everything following you all the time, and it was just fucking bizarre, but like added a whole nother element because you couldn't see where you were going at all. But yeah, I guess it's like, it sort of really added to the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like going forward, so basically what happens is you find out, I think you sort of have a flashback, or you sort of see what has happened, and I guess Scrotus has basically killed Hope and Glory, which, again, I don't know if they're trying to hit on some metaphor.
You have a flashback and then see the future? What's happening?
It sort of
Flash
lost
forward?
me. There's not really, like, I sort of got lost at that point as well. I wasn't too sure what was going on, because it sort of came across to me as if he was having a flashback, or, you know,
a vision of the future, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But basically, he kills them, and then you're on the hunt to hunt him down. And I guess it sort of plays it out in a similar way as to the film. So in the film where you have that like one, I know it's not the same characters, but you obviously have the main truck that you're following, and then you have like 5 or 6 other small cars that are following the main truck, and that's sort of what you do in order to track down Scrotus. Is you have that scene happening, and it was fucking awesome because you're fucking driving up behind this giant truck, and then got some other guys, and they have people who are jumping off of their cars on top of your car, and you've got to try and shake them off and all of this stuff. And I feel like it was actually like I thoroughly enjoyed the last couple of missions of the game because it really sort of picked up the pace a little bit. Although maybe at times I wasn't following completely what was going on, I felt so like involved with the game.
Yeah.
And so I guess the end of it ends up with you with you taking down this truck that Scrotus is in. Then he basically, I think you get him to the edge of the cliff, and his truck is sort of hanging off of it, and then you drive your car into the back of it because you're like, right, we need to give this guy one last push and then he'll be off the edge. And the guy that's with you, the mechanic Chumbucket, is like, no man, we can't do this. This is the magnum opus. This is the car that I've been working on through like my entire life. I can't really like sacrifice this. So you start putting your foot down, and it cuts to like some sort of, I guess, first person view of you inside the car with Chumbucket on the hood of the car trying to like stop you and blur your vision from where you're trying to go, and all you see is you're driving towards the truck, and then it goes to another cutscene where you jump out of the car, you slam or your car slams into the back of the truck, and then out of the back of the truck comes Scrotus in a different car. So he's driving around in a smaller car, and then it's like some weird fucking like so the truck falls off, and then Scrotus is in a different car, and you're stranded with no car, so you're on your foot, and he basically sort of drives around in a circle, and you have to pick up these things called thunderpoons. So it's like a thunder harpoon. It's like a spear with an explosive device on the end, I guess is the best way to
I know the ones from the film. Yeah,
pretty much. But so then you have to stop the car by throwing those at it. And then the ending scene is you're fighting with Scrotus, and essentially the way that you kill him is you pull the giant piece of metal out of his head, and then he's just laid on the floor with with his head basically sliced in two. And it's a pretty gnarly scene at the end, but yeah, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like I've spoken for quite a long time about the story. I actually really enjoyed it. I feel like it's, as I say, it's one of those games which I guess is the whole point of this. I sort of picked it up a while back, started playing a bit of it, never really got into it, and then now I've come back into it. I was like, wait a minute, why did I like ever put this down in the first place? Why did I ever not continue to play this? Because it's actually a really well put together game.
Yeah. And I mean, you've clearly enjoyed it. The experience that you've sort of told us about, it seems like a fun one, and it seems like you had a good time. So I mean, it does sound like a fun game. Yeah,
I mean, like I say, my like sort of description of what happens in the last couple of missions might not be the best. But certainly, like, it's
also spoilers if anybody did want to play it.
We didn't do a spoiler warning, did we?
Yeah. But, I think that's just what we've come to expect. If you want to play one of the games Jack's playing, don't listen to us.
Well, I think
he will spoil it for you.
Just this podcast in general, right? This podcast is called All Backed Up. You expect to have spoilers.
We've spoiled many things.
When this game came out, like what, 2015?
That's no good excuse, Jack, and you know it.
Come on, man.
I'm just joking about with you, but saying that game came out a while ago is never an appropriate excuse for spoiling.
No, definitely not. No.
Damn it.
Do you think the game has been consistently good? Or do you think it's only the last few hours you've gotten really, really into it?
No, I mean, I think that I think I guess at the start of the game, when you're starting out, going around, like it's one of those games that when you're sort of going around doing the side stuff, it can be a bit arduous, and it's like it feels like a task more than anything else. Like you don't actually get any enjoyment out of it. But once you start to, I guess, level up your car a bit more, and you actually, there's a once there is more of a impetus behind actually doing some of the side stuff and actually getting all of as much scrap as you can to actually then upgrade your car, upgrade the different strongholds in the map as well. Because it should be said that like you can upgrade, so there are 3 or 4 different stronghold camps in a map, and you can help them by spending some scrap at their strongholds to upgrade some of the parts. And in doing so, I think I'm not too sure how like regular it is. It felt to me it's like I get maybe every day in game. I don't know if they actually had like an in-game tracker, but you'd get like a scrap it would be like, oh, ally camps have added X amount of scrap to your just to your bank, I guess, or you just have more scrap to be using. So it's sort of like you get to a point where you're getting 400, 500 scrap every so often, and you don't have to worry too much about going out of your way and actually raiding camps and doing a whole bunch of stuff. Right. But I feel like I said to you, George, just before we started recording, I feel like it's one of these games that I've had a lot of enjoyment with it, and I feel like it's one of the games that I want to actually maybe go back into at some point. So if I ever just get if I do get bored with whatever game I start playing next, and I want to go back and maybe not move on to a different one, I'll probably go back into it because there's so much other stuff to explore that I just haven't done.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of those things that I feel like, I want to fully upgrade my car. I want to fully upgrade the equipment that I can use. I want to do all of that stuff just to see what actually happens at the end of it and see how different all of these upgrades are. Because right at the end, I unlocked an upgrade where you can basically have fire jets coming out of the side of your car.
Oh, nice.
Which is just fucking awesome, and it helped a whole bunch more during the last couple of missions, because you just do that and you set other cars on fire and they're just sort of slowly ticking down the health. Nice. So it's just it's I mean, I actually really enjoyed the game, and I guess it's I'm glad that I actually came back to it and sort of gave it the attention that it deserved, really.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's one of those games that maybe takes a while to get used to, like to get into.
Yeah.
But once you have, it's sort of got enough to it that it keeps you coming back. It's got that sort of that loop that you want from it, which is, I mean, it definitely sounds fun. It sounds like the kind of thing that if I see it on offer, I might pick it up and have a go. Because
I think,
sorry, go ahead.
I've just got to say, like, although the gameplay and the like way that you fight is very simplistic, I feel like it sort of complements that very well with the story behind it, and I think like the vehicle combat in it is where it really is. I feel like if they were to make the controls any more complex in terms of the fighting, I guess like I'm playing it on mouse and keyboard, so I don't know how it would scale to a controller. Maybe it's more complex on a controller. I imagine it's maybe just 2 buttons. But yeah, I feel like it's not meant to be focused towards like hand-to-hand combat. It's very much a vehicle-based combat game, with the hand-to-hand stuff only when you're sort of going around eliminating some camps. But I feel like apart from that, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the way that it controlled in the hand-to-hand aspects, because I actually really enjoy those sort of timing types of games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I if you're looking for something that's more complex in the way that it plays in terms of when you're fighting a couple of dudes, then perhaps it's not the game for you. But like I say, I enjoyed it, and I feel like what they lacked in that aspect, they certainly made up for in a lot of other parts of the game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The impression I had of the game from the beginning was you had to grind a lot. Like lots of collect quests, but that probably
It does
changes.
sound like it's a lot of collector quests, to be
Yeah.
fair. But that's fine. It sounds, like I said last week, I think to me it sounds very, if you like sort of Shadow of Mordor kind of game, it seems like that. It seems like that style of thing, which is dope. So, but yeah. Or I don't know what we do when we finish games around here.
Yeah,
I feel like you.
Is it-
I feel
is
like
this
you
the
wrapped
first?
it up. No. Mark's finished a ton.
yeah.
I feel like you wrapped it up quite nicely. I was just trying to think of a segue between cars and not cars. There's not many. There's a bike in this game.
There's bashing people. That's
Combat. That would have been a good one. Speaking of not particularly involved melee combat, Chor and I have been playing Ruiner. There you go. Nailed it.
got him.
Nice.
Boom. But it didn't work. I don't know what to say.
So you've been playing Ruiner. I don't know how much. I can't remember. If I think you might have mentioned it.
Good save.
Some.
I've briefly
times.
mentioned it in the last two because I figured since Troy's played it as well.
Yeah.
Speaking about it together will be good.
You've been waiting
and what
for
I'm
me.
going to do now is, Troy, you said you've played like an hour, right?
I've played 70 minutes. 7-0.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. Just over an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I've played, but I think it's more than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spoil it for Chor.
No. Well,
no.
you can spoil
Do it.
some bits.
Do it.
Not big ones.
Let the hate flow through you.
So, well, I think I've briefly described in the past episodes what it is,
Yeah.
but let's do it again anyway. Let's make this the Ruiner section. Actually, I don't know what kind of genre this would fall under. Isometric, shoot 'em up, beat 'em up, skill tree game.
Yeah. That
Nailed it.
fits. That works.
Nailed it.
I actually tried
I'm
to
so
explain it
good.
to one of my friends, and they didn't know what isometric was. So
Oh god damn.
I mean that's
This is
that's
like
where
fucking-
it fell apart.
First DT class, come on.
Why are you friends with them?
No, they didn't know what isometric meant in a game. You know what I mean? Like top down isometric kind of thing.
Yeah, but do they know what isometric means in like real life?
Yeah, I guess they do.
So you just
So,
take that
yeah.
in real life and
Yeah.
then you put it in a game.
Yeah,
it's real. It's real simple.
You think that would be simple, but hey, here we are.
If you said to them it's a top-down game, would they know what that meant?
No, they just thought it was completely top down, you know, not isometric. So I just
But you
showed them
said isometric.
I just showed them a screenshot of the game that it worked. It worked really well.
That
goddamn.
that is a better
Pictures,
way
you know,
to describe
something
games.
1,000
Pictures.
words.
Yeah, nailed it. I think you said about the same amount of words as if you'd just said the phrase, but instead you said something and made it more sophisticated, which is great. I like it.
That's what I want. That's what I bring.
I bring confusion and disaster. So yes, isometric beat 'em up, shoot 'em up kind of game, and it starts real intense.
Yeah.
It really throws you in there. The first thing you do is step off an elevator and kill people.
With a
God
like
damn.
was it a bat or like a bent pipe?
It's a metal pipe, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like
that's
a
it.
crowbar or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it is a crowbar, but it's just like some metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just fucking get in there and hit people, and
So is
in
there no
that
like
first-
is there no like lead up into like why you're
No.
doing it?
No.
no.
You wake
This
up
is-
and then
you learn why you're doing it while
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
killing people. And when you start, you've been hacked by Hacker Man. Not Hacker Man. I think he's called the Wizard. And he's just getting you. He's being like, "Come on, puppy, kill these people." They call you a puppy or a dog or whatever.
Yeah.
Weird.
And you have a cool mask, and that's it. You've got to kill someone. And then throughout this moment, you have brief like Cortana flashes.
yeah.
Where some lady is like, "Wake up! He's controlling you! Escape!" That kind of thing.
Okay.
And you discover that you have been hacked. Your brain has been hacked by this hacker man. I feel like you kind of knew that already, but that's what happens. And she frees you and you run away. That's the beginning level, which is kind of good because it teaches you the opening mechanics and then also provides motivation for the rest of the game. pretty solid opening level, I think. What do you think, Kyaw? Do you think that's a solid opening level?
It's really good, but I don't like the fact that you lose your powers after you escape from the hacking.
You do not.
No, you lose your dash, I think.
Yeah, and then you also get enough skill points to buy your dash back.
Yeah, this is true.
Like literally immediately. There is no
But
point
you
where
have
you do not
other
have
choices
dash.
and not to buy. You didn't have to buy dash.
You have one other choice, I think.
Yeah.
Because in that opening sequence you start with the dash and the shield, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And then, yeah, like Kyaw said, at the end you lose these abilities and you go into the sort of hub world, which is South Bangkok, something like that.
What did you call me?
And it's this like little sort of cyberpunky Asian city
Classic.
kind of vibe.
Okay.
All isometric. And there's like a lot of stuff going on. You can sort of this is where we mentioned, actually we may have said it outside of the episode, we were talking I think last week about how long it takes, and there's sort of the main storyline and a small element of side quests, and I think this is where the side questy bits come in. You can walk around the city and find people to talk to, and they kind of just give you extra stuff to do while you're playing,
like a little like central hub sort of area where you can go off
Yeah,
and do some
yeah,
other
exactly.
stuff. Okay, cool.
Very much like, actually almost identical to the central hub in Hyperlight Drifter.
Yeah,
It's where everything comes off of, and there are also 2 mini games.
There are mini games?
Yeah, there's 2 mini games hidden in the central hub.
Oh, okay. What are they?
That
Can you tell
sounds
us?
cool.
So yeah, this is where that all kind of comes in. But you go there, you go and speak to a like weird dwarf engineer. I'm saying dwarf in this semi-realistic world, which sounds like I'm being mean, but he's basically just like a fantasy dwarf.
Yeah.
But in cyberpunk. I mean, he's a mechanic.
Isn't he just a bit short?
Nah, he's like sort of dwarfy, you know. He's got like a beard. He's a bit gruff.
Oh, okay, I see.
He's very short.
Right. Yeah.
They've basically just made a cyberpunk dwarf, which I like.
Yeah.
You go and speak to him, and he explains to you the skill system,
Yeah.
which wasn't really explained during the tutorial level, as it were. And yeah, this is where you can pick between, like Kyaw said, you can buy back your dash and your shield, I think, but there's also, you can pick another thing, I think.
Yeah, that's
I can't
actually
remember what.
a surprising amount of skills in that skill tree, and a lot of upgrades as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. So this is, I won't go on describing that because I don't know how far you've got. But so the motivation for the rest of the game is kind of, you've been hacked by someone, and you're doing their bidding because of, I think, they've got your brother.
Okay.
So this other hacker has freed you and is like, I know where your brother is. Let's go get them. That's sort of why you're doing everything.
Okay. Makes sense.
It's why you become an extremely vicious murder machine.
Oh, there's so much gore. Actually, it's
real.
There's a lot of blood splatter. Every gunshot, every hit. It's pretty satisfying.
It's a very wow.
Well,
it's a very red game, and they just add to the redness with the murder.
I think the color scheme is red and green. Green, dark green. Possibly.
Yeah. Some greys, some industrialism in there. What was it? So yeah, that's sort of where you go with it, and you build up your skills and stuff. So the way the skills work is this sort of karma system.
Yeah, okay.
Which is literally just money. It's the money they have in this world. So you get karma from killing people. If you look around the maps, you'll find some people who are like, take my karma, I'm gonna die anyway. That kind of thing.
Okay.
That's why you should explore.
Okay.
But yeah, Kyaw makes a good point. There's lots of skills, and they upgrade a lot. And it's the kind of... deciding your skills is somewhat... You know, you get some games where it's like, well, if you just save up, you'll get all of the skills anyway, so it doesn't really matter what you pick.
Yeah.
You assign each skill to a button. So they're pre-assigned, but you can only have. So I think it's like shield ones are all on the left bumper or trigger or something like that. Yeah, left trigger. So you can either have this shield that you carry around with you, you can put down a kinetic barrier, or you can overcharge yourself, which sort of just lets you kill better.
So
and then there's like grenades, that kind of thing.
Is it like there's like a particular set of skills that will only be bound to one button, or is it like?
Yeah, exactly. So there's shields to left trigger, there's grenades to X, that kind of thing, and then there's a few that aren't bound. They're just sort of passive.
So like you can either have a shield or you can have something else, but they're both only bound to left trigger, or can you like mix and match which buttons each one's?
No, they're bound to one trigger.
Okay.
So you've got shields on left trigger, you've got grenades on X, you've got something else on B, like
what, dash?
Sort of reflex. Dash is on left bumper, right?
I was playing with mouse and keyboard and I don't remember.
Well, yeah. Dash is on its own button because I think you always have a dash.
Yeah.
The game would be basically impossible were you to not utilize your dash.
Yeah, I can imagine that happening real quickly.
And so the idea is kind of picking the best skill sets for you, which is kind of fun to figure out how it works. And what I discovered while playing was, like when I first played, and I think, Kyaw, you were saying this to me earlier, I died a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And you said the same, right? You die constantly. It's real hard.
But that's fine because like the checkpoints are actually reasonably placed.
Yeah. There's constant checkpoints.
Is there? I imagine there must be some. If you're saying that, there must be some kind of like element of healing yourself up, and like, do enemies drop like little med packs?
Yeah. They drop little health bubbles.
Yeah, there's little health packs, and some of the abilities are like you can exchange. You have basically two bars, like the sort of mana health system. You've got health and you've got energy, and energy lets you use your various abilities like shield. I think dash is free from that, but
dash is free. The shield takes up lots of energy actually.
But the shield uses energy, and then there's like a reflex booster, that kind of thing, which just slows down time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can also get an ability that sort of converts between those. You can change energy for health, health for energy.
Right.
Which kind of adds to that sort of balancing kind of thing, which I think is really good. And discovering that really helped.
Is it all just like melee combat, or are there like can you pick up guns and stuff? Okay, cool.
So there's melee and guns.
Okay, cool.
I found that mostly the melee is the good part. The guns aren't that great.
Oh really?
Yeah, most guns are pretty shit. Apart from
they're
like,
okay, and they have their use. Like there's certain bosses that I think require you to shoot them instead of getting close.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you felt about this, Kyaw, but I felt that when I was forced to use the gun, I found it considerably less fun. It slowed it down a lot. Like there's sort of two modes of fighting I found in this.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you had a gun, and some of the guns are even burst guns, like what are they thinking?
Stupid.
Yeah,
it's like a twin stick shooter, and they have burst guns, and it's like it feels every time I've used it, it feels wrong. It's quite powerful, but it doesn't feel good to use.
It's like it's a realistic cyberpunk world with cool guns and stuff, but burst guns are shit in the game.
Yeah, they don't work at all. Yeah.
I just pick up shotguns and then just basically play melee with shotguns.
Yeah, I mean the submachine guns and sort of the rapid fire guns are pretty good. Yeah. And then there's some sort of ridiculous guns like flamethrowers and grenade launchers and ice rays, which are okay.
I haven't got that far yet.
No, that comes in a bit further. But I mean they're not great, especially with the ice ray one, because it requires a level of precision. You've got to kind of keep it on them for a while to freeze them, which you just don't get from. It might work better with mouse and keyboard, to be fair, but with the twin stick sort of method, it's not particularly good. And so what I was saying about this sort of two modes of combat, there's like the main one, which is wave based, lots of enemies coming in and you just fucking destroy them. Like, you dash between them and you set up your, which I described in one of the past episodes, you sort of can set up your dashes ahead of time, almost transistor style.
Yeah.
So you can, once you've done that, you can like do other stuff while you're doing those dashes.
Oh, really? So like,
and like utilizing that really, I think, can make your fighting really, like, that's how you get good at the fighting. You utilize these dashes to a way that chains killing a lot of people, which is really fun. But then they add in bosses, which is sort of the part of the motivation through the game. You're killing these, it's like headhunters or whatever they call it. You're killing these sort of main guys, and you can't use that kind of stuff on them. You can't chain your kills, and you can't utilize your dashes in a fun way. It's kind of just you stay back and hope there's enough guns for you, and to the extent where they even have robots that come in and drop guns throughout boss fights, because they know you'll run out and they know you need more. And it's just like those bits almost always feel considerably less fun and just kind of like a waste of time.
Like especially bosses have like a large health bar, and you just have to kind of grind your way through getting his health down.
Which is like, I've not had a fun boss so far. I've had easy ones, but they're still not fun.
Right.
And there's been some that have like mechanics rather than just shooting them. You have to do some other thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, kind of. There's still the element of you have to reduce their health, but there's a kind of aspect of you have to do something first that lets you reduce their health.
Okay.
But it's still just, you have to just shoot the thing and then shoot them, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Because to be fair, I mean, the game doesn't allow for more mechanic than that, right? It's a beat 'em up, shoot 'em up kind of game.
I mean, you can't really expect much more from it. It's, at the end of the day, it's an indie game. And relatively small game as well.
Yeah, but saying that, it is still like it's a lot of fun.
yes.
The bosses are just sort of a bit of a disappointment, but it doesn't really detract away from how much I really enjoy playing it. They're the least fun part, but they're still good. Like, it's still enjoyable. It's just noticeably less enjoyable than the rest of the game.
I really enjoy the end of fights when the loot collector robot drops
The grinder.
in. Yeah, the grinder, that's it.
Yeah, and you just get a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, it grinds all the weapons, right, in the room.
Yeah, and turns it into karma, which is that sort of skill tree.
The currency.
Well, no, it's basically XP.
Yeah. And then it drops also like a special gun.
Yeah. I think the more guns you've grinded,
grinded,
the better the gun that comes out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think ground is like something has been ground ginger.
Okay.
You ground. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, I think. I don't know. The guns are a bit weird. There are some cool guns that I feel okay to use, but
I think the guns are a bit
it's
weird because, as I've said before, there's not a lot of feedback when you actually hit something.
I think that's it. Actually, I think you're right.
That's the big thing. Like, if you have a burst gun and you shoot at somebody, how do you know which hits are actually registering? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know when the guy's dead.
There really is no. Yeah, there's a few bits in. When you die, you often have to do the same fight again, and you end up kind of knowing where the enemy is.
Yeah.
So there's been a few times where I fired shots off screen because I know the enemy's there, but you never know what you've done. So sometimes they're dead already when you get to them, and sometimes they're not, and it's just like, I agree with you, Troy. I think that is why I don't like the guns.
Yeah.
There is no feedback whatsoever.
Yeah, like sometimes there's loads of enemies on the screen and I'm shooting in one direction, but maybe there's more people in the way that I hit rather than the person I'm intending to hit, and it's just I don't know where the bullets are going, and it's a mess.
Yeah,
that's why I prefer the shotgun. It's like mostly 2 shots or 1 and they're dead.
Yeah, and like the melee is really fun.
Do you? Oh yeah, you get a katana at some point. It's
I think like
on.
the first or second. Well, no. So there's the introduction level, and then there's the kind of first level,
That's real
which
mission.
is it's still kind of introductory a little bit. It's like here's the basic mechanics, and now here's some more advanced mechanics.
Yeah.
The end of that, you get a sword as your main weapon.
Oh, that's your main. Okay.
Yeah. So is that where you finished?
I think I didn't even finish it. Maybe I'm not sure, but I have definitely picked up swords, but it wasn't my main weapon.
So
Okay. So there's in the same way that you can pick up guns, there are melee weapons that you can pick up.
Yeah.
That have a durability, so like you can kill 9 people with them or whatever. And then at the end of the first level, you also get your main weapon is instead of a metal bar, you get a sword.
Yeah. Are there is there a way to then upgrade that sword, or is it just like a sword that you can use?
It's just a melee weapon.
As far as I'm aware, there's no way to upgrade the guns or the melee weapons, right?
There's one of the skill trees makes your like weapon abilities a bit better, I think, but other than that, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of it for how it feels and what it is. It's that's the gist of the game, right? It sounds like I'm saying it's bad, which isn't fair because the melee weapon, the melee, and were it to have gun feedback, the guns would be fine. The guns are quite cool, but they just don't feel like anything. Like first-person shooters, the ones that are good are the ones where when you use your gun, it feels like you're using like. You get that feedback. Maybe the sound is good enough, and you get sort of some rumble feedback, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it
feels
like
good.
The hit markers in some way as well. That really helps.
And this doesn't have that, does it? Which is disappointing, but it kind of makes sense because it's a twin-stick shooter.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry about that. And yeah, it sounds like I'm saying I don't like the game, but I really, really love the game.
The game is really enjoyable apart from like a few little niggles here and there. But the environments and the settings really, really cool. The game is what I expect Cyberpunk to feel like, and it's
So
it's a very cyberpunky. Like, it's very good for that sort of genre, that feel. It's got these. I don't know how they're made. I guess kind of sort of almost FMV cutscenes that are sort of. They feel like very much like they're made in the game, but with different camera angles. Not isometric. And they're very stylized and they're very like cool.
There is no voice acting, right? It's not my system that's not producing sound. There definitely isn't voice acting.
There's some,
but like usually
it's mostly done through text. I think I don't think you hear them, but like occasionally you'll hear like the sort of lady that is controlling you. Almost.
Okay, that's fine.
You'll hear her say some stuff, but there's no main voice acting now.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So I've sort of like I've had a video up watching the gameplay, and I mean, you guys know that this sort I guess stuff like this where like you have to do a whole bunch of stuff at once, and you have to make sure that you're dodging enemies' bullets and you're dashing in the right places and sort of making sure that you've got your shield up at the right times and everything. It feels like a game that I'd perhaps like want to sit down and play and give it a try. But I feel like
I think you'd hate it.
I was gonna say I feel like knowing the kind of like games that I get frustrated at, I feel like this would be certainly one of those ones. So I guess like the question is like how does it feel to like what does it control like? I guess both of you are playing it sort of like on like Kyaw, you said you're playing it on PC, and Dylan, I assume you're playing it on Xbox. So I guess like what does it feel like to be sort of like on top of everything at once and sort of making sure that you're dashing when you should be dashing, and like just how
it's hard.
Okay.
It's real hard.
It's not the easiest thing. I haven't gotten used to it yet, so it's
you have to get used to it. It takes a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it feels like you're kind of still in that stage, which weirdly I never had. I don't feel like I had a curve to it the first time I played it for the first few hours. So up until I think about where you are, Kyaw.
Right.
It was hard. I didn't know what I was doing. I died a lot. And then I stopped, came back to it a few days later, and it like clicked.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's it. You kind of then realize, I need to be... And I mean, it's still hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't become easy. But sort of knowing how to utilize that. I think actually the main click that happened was just focus on melee weapons.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you have to use a gun.
Right.
Because chaining those dashes and hitting people while you're dashing, and I think almost like leading your shots, but not like leading your dashes, because the enemies move around a lot. So when you use that like pre-dash function or whatever they call it, when like you place your dashes, the enemies obviously will then move, but they move lots. Like they really like roll about. So figuring out where they're actually going to be and utilizing that so you can still attack.
I actually haven't been
that,
using my dashes in a offensive way. I've just been using it to get out of trouble.
Oh yeah, you need to like get in there.
Yeah.
And kill.
I'm not meshing with the skill system yet. I'm just kind of shooting and hoping for the best.
But once you do, it feels like really good. It's still really hard, but in like a properly that kind of hard, rewarding way, not just annoying. So when you get those kills, it feels super satisfying. It feels really good. And I think one thing that makes it extra like nice is you can do ruiner moves, which is if an enemy has a circle go around them, you click in your thumbstick, and no matter where you are on the map, your character will like dash over to them and do a finisher on them.
Yes.
And that feels almost like the feedback that the gunplay needs.
Yeah.
That feels like this really nice melee feedback and is always satisfying.
It's imagine, in Doom you get the orange flashing enemies, and you just teleport to their location and you kill them. It's fucking good.
It's properly, it feels really nice. And I mean, I think that question, Jack, is kind of the key to the game.
Yeah.
That feeling is what makes it fun. Its other elements are all very well crafted and very good, but that feeling of balancing those, almost like, how Mark always goes on about with Doom. The reason he finds it fun is using everything to its ability.
Yeah.
And like balancing all the guns and skills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes this fun, but the reason I think it's so fun is because there's not really a way to not do it. Whereas in Doom, you can sort of just relax, and if you're playing it not on hard mode, you can just kind of walk around and shoot things.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but it doesn't reach its potential.
Yeah.
I think Ruiner doesn't really let you just chill out.
Is Ruiner a top-down? No, isometric Doom with weapons.
Kinda. With
Different
robots
weapons.
Instead of demons.
Yeah.
It kinda is.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I see it.
Yeah, I see that.
It can get real hectic real fast.
If you replaced the enemies with demons and the main character with Doom Guy, I don't think it would change that much, but would still feel like a Doom game.
Yeah. And all the levels when you get into, it's like room based, isn't it? All the combat's room based. It's you're locked in until you finish everyone, and then
it's very Doomy actually. That's a good point.
Huh.
But you can't cycle between guns. I mean, that's the only difference.
No, you get one gun and one melee, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. It is very Doomy.
Hot take.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have much more to say about it. There's, I think, when we've both finished it, there might be more of a discussion to be had about the entire thing as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's definitely a game I want to finish. I've not fallen out of it. It's the kind of one I want to go back to.
Yeah.
It's good. It's kind of my main takeaway. It's a really fun game. It really pulls you into it, and you really have a good time. And there's like quite a good. There's not much world building, but there's quite good world building.
Okay.
Which is nice. Like it feels quite immersive in the world you're in, which is good.
Yeah, I think you have to, right, for a cyberpunk game like that. It's almost.
I mean, the cyberpunk kind of does half of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it'd be rude not to have some element of world building in a world like that.
Yeah, but like a lot of the what I mean is like a lot of the stuff is already done. Much in the same way as sort of fantasy stories don't necessarily have to do so much a lot of the time, because half of the world building's already done. Like, you know what an elf is, you know what a dwarf is.
Yeah.
I think cyberpunk is similar. You can just go in and start talking about hacking their brain, because it's like, oh yeah, they've got a computer in their brain.
Yeah, cybernetic implants. Normal. Yeah.
And like one of the bad guys is they call him. There's a joke where they call him the head of whatever area he's in, and then they go, because at this point he's only a head. Like the rest of him is robotics.
Yeah.
Or at this point only his head's left.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it would be weird in a lot of other games, but because it's cyberpunk, you kind of know, okay, yeah, he's just replaced his body with robotics. Makes sense. And they don't have to build that up so much themselves. They just kind of mention that happens.
Right.
But they work on that world building quite well. It feels like a well-established world without having to have done much.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Awesome. Sounds like it's yeah, like I said, I mean, it's probably not. It would probably be one of those games that I'd probably play like the first level of.
Oh,
and
you'd
then
hate
just
it.
Get
You'd hate
really
it.
fucking frustrated by it. So
Yeah, you would not like it. I would not recommend you play it.
but yeah, I mean, it
is a super aggravating game at times.
If you guys are like, it's good that you guys are both sort of, I guess, like at different stages in it, and both still like very much enjoying it. So I guess, yeah, when you guys have, especially you, Kyaw, once you've sort of more got more of a grip on the game, it would be interesting to see if your opinion still stays the same, or if it changes. So
I'd like to see if it holds up until the end, or if it's just kind of more of the same from now on.
Yeah,
I don't
think
really
it's
know
just
how they
gonna
could
be
switch
harder
it up.
and harder. You know, I have a feeling.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happened so far. They've introduced some more difficult enemies, but they introduced them just as I sort of started to figure out the mechanics, so I just steamrolled through them.
Okay.
So I'm kind of hoping they introduce. I don't know. There's some enemies that make those encounters very hard, which is good. But there's some points where it's just like, these are meant to be hard enemies, and they're just not. And I think I said this to you earlier. This will be the last thing I say about it. But once you've fully upgraded your dash mechanic, which I've done now, you can just dash forever. Basically, there's like, you get a lot of dashes, and there's very little cooldown.
Yeah.
So you can chain it if you don't use it all at once. And even if you do use it all at once, you don't have to wait very long. But if you don't use it all at once, you can just keep dashing, which makes everything very easy, because you can just keep dashing and spamming melee.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It doesn't feel like there's really any enemies that can counter that in any way, which is a little bit disappointing. I think they've sort of started to come to I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm approaching the end, which I hope.
You said melee weapon that you get, like the sword, as your main is. Does that still have the durability thing, or is it permanent?
No. That's just your standard one. So once the ones you pick up you go back to this sword, which is cool, because as well the sword has like a bleeding effect. So if you hit someone and then go away, you'll die a little bit later if you didn't completely kill them straight off. Which just feels very satisfying. It's a cool game.
That's pretty neat. Okay.
But yeah, I'd like to, when you've gotten further or finished, I think we could have a even more in-depth good discussion about it. There's a lot to it, and I think it's got quite a bit of depth for such a sort of simple idea.
I'm looking forward to playing a bit more of it. Cool.
That's all I have to say. We've had like an hour. Shit. Go us. So let's finish up. That's been all backed up, a video game SOS. That's it. Nailed it. You can find us on iTunes and SoundCloud at that title I just said. And you can also find us on YouTube at Low Expectations Media. There'll be a playlist for the 2 different titled podcasts we've done. All backed up and shouting over static. Yeah. Thanks for being here with us, Jack and Kyaw.
It's been a pleasure as always, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
I'll speak to you next week. I'm excited to see what you move on to play, Jack.
Yeah, I'm not too sure myself, but we'll see.
But you've got Game Pass now, 3 months for £1.
Man.
So let's get to it, baby. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.